As we work to create shapes using our Scratch coding, the blocks that are going to be really important for us to consider are the pen tool, our motion block, so moving, and then turning a certain angle. So to start here, I'm going to move my sprite kind of to the side, and I'm going to shrink my sprite a little bit. So to start our program, always starting with one of these prompts in our event tab. And then our next task would be, I'm just going to have my sprite start here every time. So I'm going to have him go to this spot. Then I want to put my pen down so that what I do here is I'm going to make my sprite draw a shape. So our first part of this program, we are going to try and draw a square. So to start, I'm going to decide to move, we'll say 100 steps. So here's what my program will look like. So I've drawn 100 steps. Now, in order to draw this side of my square, I need to turn. So we need to refresh on the angles of our square. So as we refresh on the angle measurements in a square, we know here is the movement we have done so far. We have taken our sprite and we have moved him 100 steps. Now our goal is to turn him so that now we can create this next side. So this turn motion, we know an angle in a square is one of our easier angles to remember, but we know squares have right angles, which means one angle in a rectangle or a square, whatever we're trying to create here, is going to be 90 degrees. So this is going to help us as we look at our project here. Our sprite's going to need to turn 90 degrees, and then he can begin to draw his next side. So now, since we've drawn this first line, we've determined that we need to turn 90 degrees since we're working with a square or a rectangle. So in motion, we'll see that this block comes right here, turn 15 degrees, and we can change this to 90. Then we want to repeat the following process, and we want to move again after we turn. Now I'm going to add a couple of weight blocks in here so that we can really watch this process move a little bit slower. So before we start over here, a few things when we're working with pen is we want to make sure we clear this out. I'm going to have us go back to the start, and I'm going to clear us again, and now we'll run through this and see what happens. Move forward, we'll turn, and we'll draw our next line. So now we see here that we have two sides of our square. So in this case, with a square, we want to determine how many times do we need to repeat this process of turning 90 degrees and moving. So that's going to be your challenge to play with this with your square. You'll notice we can shorten some things up in here with these repeat blocks. You have to determine how many times you want a little piece of code to repeat. So instead of making this repeat 4 times here, since we're working with a 4-sided shape, we could type the number 4 in here and use this method instead. So now our next shape we're going to attempt at least start here. Again, this square is not done. You'll be in charge of finishing this. But we are going to try and create a triangle. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to come in here. I'm going to clear everything out. I'm going to turn my sprite back around and start up here again. So we will start up in this corner, and similarly I want to move, we'll say 100 steps to start, with my pen down. So I draw. So here's what this will look like. You can envision the triangle's going to kind of be upside down. So now our next step again is we've moved, our sprite has moved forward, and now we need to turn so that we can draw our next line. So in this case, we know, again, a triangle has a total of 180 degrees. So a single angle inside of a triangle is 60 degrees. So just like the square or the rectangle that we noticed it was 90, in this case we have a 60-degree angle here. So let's take this knowledge we know of our turning 60 degrees, because we're working with a triangle, and let's apply this to our program. So now we've got some more knowledge. I'm going to bring us back to the start here. And I'm going to clear our pen. And now we know after we move 100 steps, we want to turn 60 degrees like we determined with a triangle, and then move another 100 steps. And let's see what happens here. Now, we'll notice after we've run this code that we were hoping our line would come over here. We said that we were going to turn 60 degrees, and then we should have drawn this next line. So there is an error in our code somewhere, and you are responsible for finding it. So we will notice that, let's try and troubleshoot this briefly. We moved 100 steps, and then we turned this angle right here. We claimed this was 60 in our program, but let's analyze this a little bit closer. If I extend this line so I can see where my Scratch Cat is standing, I bring him down here, and I actually turn him, we will notice that he is turning. He's starting at the top, and he is turning this angle right here. Now I'm going to let you troubleshoot with the angle we should be using in our program. We claimed one angle in a triangle is 60 degrees, but when we relook at how Scratchy Cat is moving as he's turning the corner here, we'll notice maybe 60 is not the number we're looking for. So now you have seen a couple beginning examples of some shapes you can make and have been left with a little bit of brainstorming with how in the world did this triangle not work. So if you get past a few shapes and you've drawn them correctly in Scratch, your next challenge is to go ahead and create a code that allows a user to decide how many sides they want to be drawn of their shape, and then your program will draw it. So kind of in general, as we've been drawing here, we need to generalize this code to make it fit all shapes. So here's kind of a general direction for you to start. We always started with our pen down. This is going to be important. Then, for example, when we created a square, we decided we wanted to repeat 4 times. If we were going to create a triangle, we wanted to repeat our code 3 times. So we need to decide how many times are we going to be repeating our movements. You'll notice I put this direction in yellow because you'll find this repeat block in a yellow section in Scratch. Then you'll move down here, and if we decide for a square, for example, we're going to repeat this code 4 times, what we're repeating is we want to move a certain amount of steps. We saw in the program that I was creating that I was using the number 100. This will just determine the size. So you can make this number bigger, smaller, leave it the same. And then we want to turn a certain angle. So in our square, we turned to 90 degrees. In our triangle, we thought we needed to turn 60, but this didn't end up working. So we need to figure out in general how far we want to move and what the actual angle of our shape is going to be. So use this introduction to creating shapes and creating an N-Gon in Scratch to start your project.